Hello and welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Wrench. I'm your host, Jay Goninen. Today I have with me Lindsey Trett, who is the Director of Talent Acquisition at Walser Automotive Group. Lindsey has a ton of knowledge about the automotive industry and is not a stranger to joining us on WrenchWay events. She was recently a panelist for our third annual Technician event where she participated in a live Q&A on recruiting technicians. If you would like to watch Lindsey's session of Technician or another session from the event, be sure to check out the link in the show notes below. Lindsey, it is absolutely great to see you again. How are you doing?
I am doing well. It's a cold, blistery day here in Minneapolis after we got dumped on yesterday and the wind hits, but that's the life. Everything's going well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you on. Before we hopped on the podcast, we were almost feeling bad for each other because of our Packers and the terrible season that they're having. So it was almost like a support group for Packers fans. So it was nice to catch up on that. Yeah, therapy. Therapy. Yeah. And I give you a lot of respect. Packers fan in Minneapolis.
14 years strong. I hold the green and gold high and hard, and I bleed it out, and whether it's good or bad, we're here to support.
That's right. All right. So on the business at hand, I think one of the really cool parts about Walser is that it's a great dealership group. You guys do a fantastic job at about everything. And we'll talk a little bit about Walser. But before we do that, I want to talk about you. How did you get into the automotive industry? Really, what happened to get you in the position that you're in today?
It was by chance. I think it found me more than me looking for it. My first day in the automotive industry, first day at Walser was my first day at college. I was a part-time, full-time student, part-time employee, worked in the call center supporting 8 of our stores for service call centers. So it's just scheduling service appointments and learning that vernacular, which is challenging with the volume that comes in every day, taking 50 to 100 calls a day and never doing it before. And going to school to get my degree. I was actually a music performance major for voice and piano. So it's completely shifted. But what was really neat about the company, it's family owned, family driven. I came from a small town in South Dakota, so it resonated with me. I always felt like I was a part of something, felt at home at the company. And after I graduated from the University of St. Thomas here in Minneapolis, they hired me on full time. Worked in our business development center, and then about a year later, we really started to grow as a company, as an organization, as a retailer group, and acquired more stores across the metro. I was in the right place at the right time, but had always shown dedication, hard work, and effort, and a loyalty. Loyalty is one of my biggest values, from my family down to where I am today. And 14 years later, I worked in fixed ops, ran a service department at our Buick GMC store, ran fixed ops implementation for technology, structure, process, technician specifically. And then I was asked to take on recruiting and grow the program for technician development, programmatic recruiting across the country, but also recruiting from all aspects of our careers that we have, many opportunities from the corporation side of things.
Oh, very cool. I do have to ask, what was your plan going into music? Like, what was it that you wanted to do with music?
I wanted to be on Broadway, for sure.
Really?
I wanted to either be on Broadway or have some sort of singing, dancing career, such as Christina Aguilera or Mariah Carey. Like, those are my idols. Big time pop singer, Broadway, but was in dance. My whole high school career was just really resonated with me wanting to be on stage and performing with the team and being a leader of a squad and like hitting the big stage. So in essence, where my career has gone does follow that in a sense. It's just not the spotlight of being, I guess, this celebrity of some sort of music career, but I really channel that still today. It's a pastime for me.
Yeah.
I love it,
so you're still singing?
I never saw it happening. Still sing on the side, yeah. For not anything like major, but weddings and events, karaoke, things like that. Music
really?
is a safe space for me. It's a place I can almost unplug.
Yeah.
I love music, all styles, all genres.
I'm super jealous of people that are good and talented musically because I am not that whatsoever. Often sing the wrong words to a song, which is just mainly because I don't know them. But I give you a lot of credit because I think performing in front of people I think that can add a skill once you enter the workforce that maybe you wouldn't get otherwise, right? Your ability to go out in front of people and like you said, leading people, but then also, getting in front of people at a young age is not the easiest thing in the world to do.
Yeah, I was singing and dancing since I was 4 years old in front of people, in front of auditoriums, big arenas and national stages across the company at Disney World. So it was a major blessing I didn't realize would benefit me down the road.
Yeah.
But I'm so comfortable being in front of others.
And it doesn't freak you out to sing at a wedding?
No.
I would be terrified. Like I can give presentations and that kind of thing, maybe speeches, but not singing in front of people seems like the most terrifying thing in the world. Where I got most nervous was when I sang the national anthem at the state tournament, for the AA state tournament, for my dad, who was the coach of the team. I sang as a representative of the high school, and there were 2,000 people there. That was when I was most nervous because I just wanted to do a good job, and they knew that I was the daughter of the coach of the varsity team. That was when I would say, like, I could feel my heart beating out of my chest, for sure. I bet. And that's like a once in a lifetime opportunity. You're never going to be in that position again. No.
Yeah.
The pressure. That's crazy. So tell us a little bit about Walser. Give us kind of the layout of the dealership group as a whole.
Sure. So we're founded in Minneapolis, Minnesota, started in 1954, went through many different periods of growth and changes, but always owned by the actual Walser family, currently run by Andrew Walser, which was the son of Jack Walser, who started the organization. We have roughly 18 dealerships in the metropolitan, plus a few affiliate locations, body shops, and some rental car locations as well. And then we do have our luxury Highline campus in Wichita, Kansas, 8 dealerships there we acquired back in 2017 roughly. And then we have a few Ace Rent-A-Car locations throughout the country and one location in Countryside, Illinois. Countryside Nissan is the dealership. So the platform really grew over time based on who we are, what we want to accomplish, what we want to stand for. And our current owner, CEO Andrew, wanted to be a company of developing people, developing leaders, not selling cars, not servicing cars. We know that has to exist. That's how we operate. That's how we have a business. That's how we have jobs. But how do we support others in knowledge building and growth and building a career for themselves that is unique, where you don't need a degree. You don't need an education specific to automotive. Yes, for some roles, you need maybe a little bit more schooling for education and maybe towards the technician side, advanced level, or OEM specifics, maybe the finance side or the legal side of the corporation. But beyond that, we want to teach people the way that we believe service and sales should be towards our communities and our customers, and how that intertwines as a whole to the values of the Walser family. So family, career, diversity is what we stand for as our proposition. It's who we are to the public. We want to meet people where they are, and family is number one. It stems from being a family-owned company, but when we took the values exercise across the organization the last 5 years, everyone voted family as their number one. So it's our number one driver of how we treat each other, what our benefits are, what we look at every day for employee resource groups or ways that we can touch the employees. And then the career aspect. Career could be growth and progression. Career can mean stability and being a trusted professional and finding a place where you feel at home. And that can stem into many different options. We call it the road at Walser. The road can shift and navigate, but we support you along the way. If you feel knowledge, skills, and ability to apply towards a different position, you can get there. I never thought I'd be in fixed operations, and a lot of people never saw me being that either. But Andrew, our owner, saw that I could problem solve and uniquely teach and train and put prioritization and process together, and they would teach me the knowledge of the business from there. And so we apply that in many realms across the company. We're 2,000 employees strong. and continuing to diversify the way we think about things, whether it's the way we attract technicians, the way we attract early talent for many platforms in the company, but how we retain people too.
It's such a refreshing take, and I think in our industry, I don't see a lot of businesses that maybe have that same take, and I think that is something that is truly a unique differentiator in terms of you're just trying to find good people and find a spot for them on the bus, right? You're trying to find those talented people that maybe don't even know that they're talented yet, and being able to get them in the right place. I think there's so much value in that approach, and what you'll find over many, many years is that as you add those talented people to your team and then watch them grow, that it's got to be a rewarding piece of the business.
Very fulfilling. And if we speak it and we believe it, it does transcend from the top down. I know every day I can count on our senior leadership team to have that same message and passion in mind. And if that transcends to our store leaders, directors of major functions, the team naturally embodies that too.
Right.
It's very special. And it's taken time for us to figure that out. The last 5 years has been an evolution for us.
Well, so talk me through that part, the last 5 years. What prompted that? What was kind of the reasoning for that? And then kind of walk me through that a little bit.
As an industry, we get attached stereotypes from our even existing employees and what it means to be an automotive workforce, but then to our communities and to our actual customers where, okay, why wouldn't they want to come work for us? Because we think it's great, but we had to believe it ourselves and stand for something versus, okay, we know we're automotive, but beyond that, what is our brand? What is our message? What do we want to stand for as a company, but then with our manufacturers? Because we represent many brands. I mean, we've got 15 plus manufacturers we support. So the diversifying of our thought process, but holding each other accountable to it took time. We had to look inside ourselves from the top down and then own it. It's almost like the school pledge. It's, I believe in this, and we're going to put it on every wall. It's cemented in the wall. We see it, we believe it, we own it. That was not easy. It was almost gravity pulling you back towards traditional. We don't negotiate price. It's one price, one person.
Yeah.
So that aspect from the front end of the house has to also then be mimicked in the back end of the house. We don't wheel and deal anybody behind the scenes. Go back and redo the numbers. What you see is what you get for not only the product and then the performance of what we do and what we deliver. And then the people side had to be there. If we don't have people that believe in that, then we can't open our doors. So it had to come full circle. And it did take time. I mean, that was a lot to build. And we're still just assessing it and making sure every day, are we getting better? Are we actually meeting people where they are? And are we representing what the manufacturer expects of us? Whether it's Subaru, Toyota, Mazda, we want to be a place where people feel comfortable and confident and safe.
That is such a cool, again, another really cool take. But I think knowing that speaking of Packers, Vince Lombardi quote, where you aim for perfection, knowing you're never going to get there. And I think that growth mindset is so important when you're running a business. And one of the biggest compliments I'll give to your operation in hearing you talk is it's got to come from the top down, right? Like the leadership, senior leadership has to believe in it, and it can't just be something you put on the side of a wall and don't talk about. And I can tell just listening to you and in our past conversations that it's not something that's just stuck on the wall. It's a way of life. And I think when you take that mindset, that is so different than a lot of companies. I worked in corporate America, and we had those all over the place, those different types of mission statements and everything that were on the wall. And I'm like, we don't live that. We don't do that. And you guys are actually, I mean, it's a part of your conversation. It's a part of your fabric. And I think that's a lot of credit from the top, everybody at your organization to really buy in and do that.
It requires the stakeholders in the field. So like you said, it can't be just at the corporate side. Even though we're local to our team, we can be to our stores within 30 minutes max, which is a huge blessing.
Yeah.
So we're always in the field. But we have to have the leadership at the stores. We call them Center of Excellence general managers, who have a piece of what we believe to be the most important aspect of our companies: people, inventory, process. And those leaders that have been in our organization or the automotive industry 10 years minimum hold our people to it, but speak it from the heart, knowing this is the Walser way. This is why we do this, so we can continue to adapt to the world that we live in. If we don't adapt and progress, which will never hit perfection, but we have to adapt and progress constantly.
Yeah.
Or we will get left behind.
Oh, 100%. And I think in the current market of consolidation, I think you see that where, you know, the good companies are the ones that are progressive, and they are maybe not viewing it as just moving cars, but actually growing people. And I want to talk about that piece of the business and growing people, because I think it's so important now. And, you know, you're obviously familiar with the shortage of technicians. I think we hear it in every piece of content that anybody in fixed ops puts out, that there's a shortage of technicians.
We just launched our new weekly game on Shop Talk, The Loneliest Number. Each week, we will post short poll questions on Shop Talk about industry topics. Technicians who answer the questions will earn points to play the game and get a chance to win our $1,000 weekly prize. $500 will go to the lucky winner, and the other $500 will go to a local high school program picked by the winner. Start playing now at WrenchWay.com/ShopTalk. Link is in the show notes.
How do you view growing your own technicians, and how do you view kind of maybe getting that young blood in to be able to grow within the company? What's kind of your take on that?
This was part of the reason I took the new role in the company, and the way that our senior leaders and we were scratching our heads and thinking, gosh, what are we going to do here? And it has to start early. We are committed to growing our own. We will not find established, tenured journey person or advanced diagnostic technicians to migrate over in massive numbers. It's not realistic, because our own aren't even leaving to go elsewhere with all the sign-on bonuses and crazy things that they're offering. So we want to hold our people strong, but teach the new and advance them through the process. We know we need journey person, and we know we need advanced diag or heavy duty, but it's our responsibility to teach and grow them. So our methodology was to find technicians either in school or wanting to go to school. So whether from the high school into the college, post-secondary, locally and non-locally, and establish those relationships with career services, the faculty, the community platforms, and become an employer of choice for what we were going to take care of their students or children of. I'm talking to parents half the time. I'm like an NCAA sports agent.
It's a good way to look at it.
And show them it's how it felt, because we have to commit them early and show them why they will be taught, and they won't be hazed and shoved in a bay and said, go turn time and figure it out for yourself, because that's what I had to do. So we had to stop, drop, and roll and assess, okay, what are we going to commit to now? Because the ways of the past aren't working. And throwing money at people is a short-term solution. So instead, map out the career. Show them from point A to point B to all the way to Z where their career could go. And that career could mean beyond being a technician, and it should be. It should mean into leadership roles. It could mean into other roles in the actual dealership level, into the corporate office. I've seen many ways the road can shift. We talk about a 90-day period of holding them close and mapping that out for them, and then continued one-on-one and mentorship and training and education. That had to be owned from the top, then to the store, and then we established team lead technicians at each store that had small team structures where they were responsible for growing and teaching others.
So how do you start that process when you're sitting down with that young technician and you're looking at, that maybe 20-year-old, or in some cases maybe even 19 or 18-year-old person that's coming in and talking to them about their career path. And, I think a lot of times we get really excited and we have big aspirations, right? And being able to kind of talk them through what their career journey might look like. Like how does that process work with you?
We have it mapped out, which everyone listening won't be able to see.
Nice.
But we mapped it out. We looked through what level of technician each brand or operation it would progress to, how long it would take, and what each of those classifications mean to a person, and what our side of it was of a commitment, and then what the expectation would be for the new employee coming in and how we would support them through that process. So whether it's the small teams, the cross training, the way that the work is dispatched to them, their support structure, orientation, on the job training, but then paid training off site, we had to look at, okay, what made this successful journey person technician who he is or she is today? Okay. They walked us through it, and then we had to apply the current methodology or the current systems or softwares or trainings or things that we could use in place and put it into modern day practice. It had to be mapped out. We have a full-on documented program that we can deliver to anybody at any time. And it's like I pledge allegiance to the Tech Life program of the Walser Automotive Group, and this is my commitment, either technician team lead, as a new technician coming in, as a store leader, whether the service department or the general manager, and then as the technician programmatic recruiter, we see that person in our company as the sports agent. We handhold the person through the whole process. We are constantly touching base, 30, 60, 90 days. And if they are relocating to the company, they have a +1 usually we are talking to, whether it's a spouse or a parent or someone important or significant in their life, that is also given the same exact information. It is a commitment. And we mimicked a lot of it through education platforms, major established institutions, and honestly, sports recruiting, because it works. We had to look at business models that work, that do this every day. The automotive industry doesn't have to be different than that.
No, I love the fact that you said that, because that's something that I've said for a long time, in that there are so many parallels to maybe like a college football program where your technicians are your stars on the field, right? And your the football teams have a manager, they have an AD, they have, they've got all of this different structure around it. But at the end of the day, the ones that are getting the work done are the ones that are on the field. And I think when you can transform your mindset to that level and be able to use principles from that type of recruiting, I mean, that a lot of that applies to exactly what we're doing here.
We study. We always study. We're always learning. If I think, I don't have enough time today to read another article or read another book, well, my owner's doing it. If he can do it, I can do it. So that's my responsibility if I'm wanting to acquire talent and build talent platforms and careers. I've got to read, I've got to study, I got to think outside the box, but then also just go back to some basic things that have existed for decades. Recruiting's been around a long time, whether it's to schools or out of school. So the internship programs have begun for certain careers at the company, and we also do apprenticeship programs for technicians, but our goal is to commit them to a career with us. The other piece I missed a little bit earlier too is just fact finding with your current staff. We had many technician advisory team meetings with either tenured technicians, established skilled technicians, or maybe new. Gain a lot of feedback for, I would say, 3 years in a row. This is not a flip of a coin to change the narrative. You have to put in the time and the energy to get to this point, and we're still not where we want to be. We still want to go further and be better and evolve, but I would just say for those listening, this takes time and energy, and it is hard work.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, again, going back to your growth mindset, and, I love the fact that you're out there reading and that you're better educating yourself and maybe looking outside the box and looking at different industries. I think so many folks in our industry tend to just look at what the neighboring shop is doing and kind of copy that. And it may have led to why we're in the position that we're in today, right?
Yeah.
Because that didn't mean being involved with schools. That didn't mean, actually having a relationship with your people. And, I think, you're talking about those relationships and the relationships with your people, and retention is such a big deal, and keeping your people that you've already got. And we'll talk more about the career path and how you go there. But I did want to touch on one point that stuck out to me. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if you'd have advice on how you get real feedback from your team, right? So that they're not just telling you something to get out of that meeting, right? They're not just saying, oh, everything's great, and then leaving. How do you go about kind of getting them to give their true feelings and know that they're listened to? And I feel like there's so much value in that from the standpoint that you're actually listening. But how do you get them to really feel comfortable enough to be able to divulge information that might not be all that flattering to you or might not be flattering to the company, but that's the stuff we desperately need to hear so that we can get better?
So I can think to the time where I was put in place to run the service department with a union shop. Love our stores and partner with the union, but union shops are a little bit tough. Tenured technicians, average 15 years plus of time there at that store. They didn't know me from anybody, but I was looking for feedback because we were trying to build a process and change things. I had to be consistent and be there for them. I had to be there before they got there and after they left, and lean in to seek to understand. It was not me pushing something upon them. It was me seeking to understand. So how do you operate like this? Or how can I help support you better? Or teach me this. I want to understand. And then I would always digest it. It wouldn't be an immediate reaction or action. It would be, okay, let me take it in. Because the last thing they are looking for is just change, new person in, or new process, or new idea, because we're always trying ideas here. We're an idea factory. But we have to have people who trust us with the ideas of what we're bringing in. And with those ideas, they have to start from someone who does the job every day. So I spent 12 to 14 hours every day with those technicians for at least 6 months. And we were lockstep with each other. We were one for one. I ran cars for them. I brought tools to them. I updated whatever they need. I punched clocks and time, like everything you can imagine. So I could feel relatable to them, where they would feel comfortable in sharing. They knew I was one of them. I was there. I was an honest, transparent, trusted person with some street cred.
There is so much value in what you just said there, in gaining the trust. And again, I point to leadership too. I give you a lot of credit for putting in the time and effort and understanding that building that trust is so key, and putting in the work. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people that do that, like what you just explained there. But for your company to allow you the flexibility to be able to go do that as well, right? Where a lot of times, go back to your example of an entry-level technician. There's a lot of shops throughout the country that their expectation is that individual is turning hours in the first, 2-3 months, and that they're going to be really productive. And it has set an unhealthy expectation of young people, and I think is a reason why, we go back to the stat from ASE all the time, the ASE Education Foundation, that 42% of techs leave the industry within their first couple of years after leaving tech school. We're eating our own. And hearing that is so refreshing, because they gave you the time and the trust to be able to go out and build those relationships and know that, you're out there working your tail off, and you're gaining that trust. And I think there's so much to be learned from that for our entire industry.
It is not easy. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. And hard things are usually not easy and worth it. Or the end of the Super Bowl, if you will, that you finally got someone to share something with you that was so valuable, and they finally were like, yes, Lindsey, I'm with you. I got you. And we were a unit. Like, those are my people still. The ones that I spent all that time with, I could call them for anything at any point, and they would be here. And they do the same for Andrew, our owner, and our senior leadership team, because we were all there within that process, really starting this evolution as I was speaking of. You mentioned something too about the retention side and just ensuring that they feel a part of it, the change. If they feel we're forcing anything to them, it's an immediate turnoff. So they have to feel a part of the change and a part of the solution. So our whole structural change of team lead technicians, support, training, growing early talent came from our technicians. They have to believe it more than anybody else.
How hard was it to get through the I learned the hard way, so you have to learn the hard way mentality?
Oh my gosh. It's amazing how someone wants the pain that they went through impressed upon somebody because it made them stronger and it made them who they are today. But we have to remind them that that is not going to help support their daily struggles. The daily struggle of not having enough people to do the work coming in and being overloaded and bombarded. And we kept going through the same cycle. It's like the mouse on the wheel. Okay, we got to get off this drug. What once was before does not have to be the current or the future.
I had a technician once tell me, and I was talking and having just a great conversation with this technician, and I kind of said the same thing, right? I'm like, hey, technicians need to be a part of the solution to this, and as a result, it will make your life easier. And what he told me was really interesting, and I thought it was it was thought provoking to me, anyways. Where he had said, Jay, one of the hesitations with technicians in growing this industry is that there's a lot of flat rate technicians in there, and they're worried that if they bring more technicians into the fold, that it's going to take away their work. And it's almost creating this almost infighting within the industry, and maybe even internal conflict with that individual technician. And I thought that was fascinating.
Mm-hmm. It is a common thing we hear. If it's at a shop that might not be as, we'll say the word busy. Our company is fortunate enough that we have enough support and resources that our market is captured. We have a great workflow, but the idea of that someone would steal someone else's paycheck or hours was a part of the concerns. We had to hash it out and show them that by bringing in early talent and growing and mentoring them allows us to bring in more work, market for more work, have that ability for stronger retention, less comebacks, getting things done quicker, more efficient. It's all about time, giving customers time back more than their own money. There was a lot more bigger picture we had to speak to. So we had to bring them out of the bay. Come out of the bay. Let's go see the whole picture of how this whole cycle works. And it was a reality, but we had to meet them where they were first. Because that's where they live every day, in their bay with their tools. That's their reality. But so we had to live theirs, and then they had to come live the other sides of the business too. And they're very smart. They're so smart. It didn't take long for them to understand, okay, I get my piece of this, and I see your piece of it too, so let's compromise a little bit.
The fact that you took them out of the shop and out of their natural habitat, if you will, and got them into seeing other aspects of the business, again, a huge value add for a technician because it gives them the opportunity to see different things. I think that's where, you talked about cross-training earlier in the conversation, and I think giving them perspective in terms of what that service manager does or what that marketing department does or what anybody else in the dealership does is hugely helpful for them just to get an understanding of what it is, and that they're not just sitting behind a computer and not doing anything all day long. They actually have a job that they're pretty good at.
It's a mutual respect that can be gained very easily when that natural habitat is taken away for, even if it's for a few hours. We brought technicians to the corporate office or we met them there at the dealership. It was critical to the change, and the change agent almost was what that was.
If you're enjoying Beyond the Wrench, remember to follow and rate our podcast to help support the show. Right now, we'd like to give a shout out to this week's sponsor, Wind River Financial. Are you paying a bunch of added fees for credit card processing? How about waiting for hours or days for a callback from tech support at your payment processor? Wind River Financial is not okay with it either. In fact, a desire to get rid of the empty promises of the payments industry is one of the reasons this merchant services company was formed back in 1999. Now, over 2 decades later, family-owned, Wind River continues to thrive by bringing integrity, transparent pricing, and a higher standard of service to its customers. They've been serving the automotive industry for over 20 years and would love the opportunity to serve you too. Give them a call at 833-274-5875 or visit windriverfinancial.com.
Let's walk through that career growth side again. And when I say that,
Yeah.
you mentioned having the check-in points at the 30, 60, and 90 days. How do you say that tech that's been there for 5 years, they're starting to get their feet under them. They're, starting to really understand the business and understand their job. How do you take their temperature and understand where they're at?
So there's an evaluation that the technician, team captain, or the service manager has to do on a consistent basis. I would say for a more tenured technician, it's not going to be, we're talking weekly anyways, because that's how the cycle works for technicians, but quarterly for sure, they have scorecards that they're measured on to ensure that the success and the progression of their technicians that are on a dedicated, personalized career path are happening, and it's committed to. So if it's 5 years in and they're on the path or they've gotten off the path, okay, so where are we? Are you still on your way to becoming a certified master of this brand or advanced jayg? Or do you see the potential for yourself in something else? And that's that crucial conversation where, are we identifying this person as a future leader of the shop or a store or maybe a function? Or do we see their potential and they need to keep growing their skills as a technician? It is going to depend on the person, but those crucial conversations have to happen at the store level, and it is up to our leadership to do so.
And what you're doing there is you're opening the door for them to have that conversation. I've talked to so many technicians over the years that I don't think they're comfortable in that type of conversation a lot of times. And I don't want to put all technicians in the same bucket, but just based on some of the feedback I've heard from technicians, they don't almost feel comfortable putting their hat in the ring for something different than what they're doing. And I think when you enter that conversation, it allows you to get more candid. It allows you to actually get to their true feelings rather than, just trying to hide behind the fact that, hey, you know what, you're going to stay out in the shop, forever.
No, that is the kiss of death.
It really is.
You will be so left behind, or you will have the constant empty bays in your shop trying to fill those. We have a program called Technician Emerging Leaders in the company. We started this early last year. After our evolution began, we said, okay, it's time. So we put it as a part of our employee succession plan that happens every year, and we dedicated an emerging leader program to technicians, the top technicians identified by their service manager and their general manager at the dealership that could be seen as a future higher level contributor. Saying they have to be a service manager. We're not pigeonholing that. But we felt that based on their performance, their attributes, their contributions, they have an assessment they take for behavioral traits, that this person could contribute more to our corporation. They are given a business case, they're given an assessment, they're given a presentation to do as a team and as an individual, and then have one-on-one time with either our owner or our senior vice president or our chief of human resources and all things talent. That time then establishes those incredible conversations of potential and acknowledgement for a person. And from there, we promote either immediately or we have a plan for that person. And they might come in thinking they want this, where we have to say, well, based on what we saw, and normally, I mean, most of the time they're identified as emerging for a reason. They usually all do a wonderful job, but it's allowing our senior leaders of the company that are running the operation, forecasting ahead to say, okay, well, I see you doing this. Did you ever see yourself doing this? I mean, I was an emerging leader and I was like, no, but you see that in me? Okay, great. And it pivots a person's mindset and allows them to apply themselves differently. That program will now sustain itself, I believe, for many, many years to come. And it's specific to the technician workforce we have. So that's another thing we promote to early talent. We have an emerging leader program. This is a prized opportunity that you'll be selected for. It's like getting the letter in the mail that you've been accepted into this major college or this, you made the team. Like, it's a huge accomplishment, but it's about your career and your potential growth as a person and as
what
a
an amazing
professional.
program. I had not heard of that prior to this. I give you a lot of credit. That is incredible. How do you manage jealousy then? Right? Like if somebody gets onto the emerging leaders program, and maybe they have a coworker that doesn't feel like that it was the right choice, or that they feel, almost slighted because they didn't get on that. How do you manage that side of it?
A direct conversation has to be had, because that person, if they feel that way, does that mean they want it for themselves? Maybe they do have personal feelings that person shouldn't have received it, sure, but getting down to it and fast. Time is not your friend in that situation. Acknowledge what they have to say. I mean, they clearly have emotions about it. We didn't deal with that too much, maybe more envy.
That's a better word. Yes, you're right.
But it does exist. They're competitive.
Yeah,
they always want to turn the most hours and be the most efficient, and
it's how you know you have good people
exists.
too, right? If they are competitive, and I think even to force that conversation, if they're not put in the emerging leaders program, I think is a huge benefit to that technician as well, because it gives you a chance to sit down with them and maybe identify some of their blind spots that they're not seeing, and allows them to be able to grow as an employee too. So maybe next year they are on that program.
Exactly. Yes. That's
so
exactly how it should
take
go.
that maybe even a step further and go back to when you're talking to somebody about their career plan and their path, and maybe somebody has an idea of what they think their career path is going to lead them, but you have maybe a different suggestion for them. Same thing where you're just sitting down and having that candid conversation with them.
Yeah, with a lot of examples and a lot of support, where that conversation can lead to. So if that person says, well, gosh, I want to be a leader. Okay, so let's describe what being a leader is and what our expectations are as a leader of people, with responsibility to the department and what comes with that. Does that match up with that person's skill set and abilities currently? And if they do or do not, we have to tell them why and show them a way of how to improve. The evolution of a person does exist, and we believe in second and third chances around here, that someone can change if they truly want to and they have the right resources and support. And it's not just, well, okay, beyond that, there should be substantial gravitational information this person is provided, and continual touch bases. I believe everyone listening, and you and I, have been told no. Those are the best no's I've ever been told. Because if a person truly wants it, they will dedicate themselves to get better and achieve it the next time.
And giving those
time.
second and third chances, I think, gives somebody a safe space to be able to talk about things too, right? And if it's just cutthroat, like the old Jack Welch GE method of just cutting the bottom 10% all the time, I don't know that was ever an overly sustainable model. But, I think giving them a safe space to make mistakes, especially young people, like you use the example of a technician where they're going to screw up. It's like it's going to happen. A lot of times they haven't done that thing you're asking them to do yet. And so yet still in our industry, you still see where those young people are punished harshly when they screw up. And if you can afford them patience and give them a safe space to grow, I think people would be shocked at the results when you do that.
Again, it's not easy, but it's worth it. It gives you the shock factor of, okay, wow, this person is really opening up to me. They feel comfortable and safer, or actually maybe a little bit more committed and dedicated to improving themselves. And then there will be some that don't. We know that. But moral of the story is talking to your people consistently, and to the technician side, staying on that subject. They are smart, communicative people if you let them be. If you allow them to show them their true selves and connect with them, they will share what they want to share. They'll expose some vulnerability to you, but is also just their sheer talent or potential.
I think understanding that they're talented people and treating them as such is, again, maybe another underrated piece of retention and recruiting.
Yes.
I think technicians can see through that if it's just a facade or if it's not something that ownership or management truly thinks. I think people can see through that. And just hearing it in your voice, you can tell. And going front lines with people, I think, and working side by side with them helps you see them in a different light than you ever would if you just kind of throw them in the back and tell them to do their job.
That is the best way to connect with the workforce that you're trying to connect with, relate with, change, support, frontline, commitment and working in their shoes a little bit goes a long way. Doesn't need to be forever, but it does really. No, people don't forget that.
It does, and that's we all crave loyalty, and yet we don't extend that to a lot of people. And I think that's where we, as an industry, could improve greatly is doing that and just being. In a lot of cases, it's being a good person. I know we've got businesses to run, and we need to make money to keep people employed and keep people there. But that just goes it goes the extra mile truly, because I think people feel that, and it's a warmth that you don't get otherwise. And whether that's stated or not, I think that's that's just I can't tell you how much I appreciate that perspective. I think that was phenomenal.
And to speak more to that as well as just the celebratory fact, the small wins really do matter to a person. Whether it's they finally accomplished the job that they were working on to fulfill in a certain amount of time, or they passed an ASE class, or it's their birthday, or it's their child's soccer tournament. Like, those things really do go so far. So it's beyond the professional growth. It's that personal connection that I've found over time in being a leader the last 12 years. Those things keep people with you and believe in you that, okay, she or he really care about me inside, me and who I am and how I bring myself to work. And
that's the stuff that's going to come out at a cocktail party too, right? If you're out discussing with your friends how you like work, that's the stuff that I think is, we've all been there when you're talking to somebody who really appreciates their job and appreciates the people they work for, and they talk glowingly about those people. That's what you're trying to get to, right? You're trying to get to where your people are your best recruiters, that when they're out talking to their friends, that they're saying some pretty awesome stuff about you. And I think they're always going to, when I say they, a potential employee is always going to take more credence from somebody they or trust. They're going to, let me rephrase that. They're going to trust somebody that they know, like, and trust a lot more than what they're going to trust any of us, right?
Yes.
Because we're trying to sell them on a position, whereas that person is just talking to them as a friend and saying, hey, this is a great spot for you at some point.
Yeah, it's the brand representation. We were at a school career fair in Arizona, and we had been there a few times before, so our name was starting to grow. And we had hosted some of the students to come visit. And one of the students had not committed yet. It was a year out, but we were in touch with him. And he walked by and he said to all of his technician friends and comrades, great company.
That's worth it. That's worth its weight in gold.
And we're just doing our thing, right? That, I'm like, okay, this is how it works. That the brand starts to speak for itself, but it has to be consistent.
It does.
It has to be true.
Genuine. Genuine. It is so, so important. If it's fake, people see through that, and it does not work.
No, not at all. Oh, and one thing too, I made a note. You had mentioned the fear of the technicians when they first start and how we lose them early. And I think it's the fear of flat rate and just chasing your money. So I would challenge those listening or watching that making money a non-issue up front and having some sort of guarantee in their path to commit to their training and growth versus them worrying about the flat rate system or maybe in any position. Think about that, because we've modified our program to early talent coming in. They have a guarantee up front where if it's a commission-based role, that they don't have to chase their paycheck for a while. It just allows their mind to be at ease, to learn. They're already nervous. It's their first day in a shop with a bunch of people they have no idea.
Everybody's first work a week is the worst. And being a young technician,
First day of school jitters, right? It's back to that. You think yourself, you're back in kindergarten all over again. You're scared out of your mind. You don't know anybody. You want your mom or your dad. That's how they feel. So to ease that pain or joy or scared or all those nerves, what can you do to make that experience up front really easy for them? And I challenge those listening to do that for at least 6 months. It won't give you immediate production back in, but it's worth the drop or guarantee that you're going to get your own profit.
I love that part, and I want to extend that a little bit to not even just entry-level techs. I think in a lot of cases, a lot of our stores, a lot of our shops are big, and at times it can be challenging. I say this a lot, but it was because of my personal experience growing up. I just talked to a local dealership group and I was just we were just having small talk, and then I said, when I graduated from tech school and I was going to be a technician, I intentionally did not apply at your dealership because they were too nice. They were too big. And I felt intimidated because here comes little Jay from small town Wisconsin, and going into that dealership felt intimidating to me, right? I didn't know who to go talk to. I didn't know, I didn't know if I was even good enough to be there, right? And so that was one of the things where in my discussion with them, I was like, the more you can make this feel accommodating and make it feel like, hey, you're joining this family, and it might seem intimidating because you've seen the commercials on TV or you see the gigantic store on the major highway. If you can break that down to make them feel welcome and make them feel like when they come in, they're not going to look stupid for going in the wrong door or something like that, I think that means a lot.
Yes, it does, especially if it's their first job or if they left a job that they've been at a while. Those are the two that stand out to me that I've dealt with most recently. We also have stores that aren't open yet that we've committed people to. So we have to hold on to them and make them feel embraced and encouraged. It's the relationship building where they feel like when they walk in the door, they see a person they know that they can talk to. So we built in some initial meet and greets, even some dinners, some employee onboarding events. We might actually roll it out to all employees as we go forward, but for those who are in specific programmatic things like technicians or recruits, we've recruited them or committed to them long before they start. That candidate panic is real. How do you make them feel warm and welcome? It's consistent communication. It's usually there's one constant person as the conduit that holds their hand, that makes them feel good, introduces them to the store leaders, and those store leaders really have to step in and say things to them on a consistent basis. It's that relationship building right if you can. Because you have to know the person to an extent that you're going to go work for, and you want to feel comfortable walking in. Like, oh, that's my boss, or that's my team of techs. I know them because we had dinner last week and I feel better. I got some of my nerves out of the way. If it's possible. I know it's not feasible.
And that speaks to culture too, right? I think when you've got a great culture and it doesn't have to be everybody, but at least some warm people to make that person feel at home and make them feel like they're, hopefully take away some of that anxiety that comes with starting a new position. And I thought it was interesting that you mentioned folks that have worked somewhere for a long time coming to work at a new place. That might be as terrifying as coming in new.
Oh, completely. Those ones I think are almost more severe because their comfortability at their other place of employment is so ingrained within themselves that for them to start something new is terrifying for them completely. The being ready for that person day one, like, okay, here's your bay, it's all ready, or here's your locker, and here's your place that you're going to work at every day. Everyone knows you're going to be there, eases them knowing they're not just the new kid on the block. It's like, okay, everyone was expecting me and they're welcoming me. So it's simple things like that that can really help a person.
We mentioned culture, and we're running a bit short on time with the podcast. I think I could go for forever with you here. This is really good stuff. But with the culture side, and when you're, we talked about taking the temperature of an individual and understanding where they want to go in their career. Mm-hmm. Any advice on how to take the temperature of how your culture is doing in a specific shop?
That's good. Thinking of some specific ones right now that have had some ups and downs. Starting with the leadership of the store, for sure, just asking some questions and gaining their knowledge. We actually do pulse surveys. We do a survey to each of the employees on how they're feeling in general about their general environment, about their performance, about their leader. So that gives us a general pulse, hence the name Pulse Survey. Having some conversations. We usually have some people on the ground just pulling people aside, checking in, trusted people that the employees feel comfortable talking to, gauging it that way more than anything. Can usually get a sense just by observing, not even just listening, watching, get a sense if people are connecting, helping each other out, if people are silent or talkative. I think many of those who have worked, at least in our industry, or have run a department, or you can get a sense within about 5 minutes how things are. Are people happy? Are people communicating? Are they have a sense of urgency about them? Or are they feeling
you are absolutely right. When I walk into a shop, I can get a read, and I think it's probably due to experience, but you can walk in and you get a feel immediately on how that shop is run, what people think of that place of work. I mean, there is so much you can take away from just walking around a shop, and how many people are smiling, or how many people look miserable. You can get a gauge and a feel if you're intentional about looking for it you can get a sense to where a shop is at fast, or any business for that matter.
Fast. Yeah, I mean, usually the numbers start to spark some sort of signal like production or CSI or inventory sales. I mean, there's something that usually starts to stand out, or it's turnover. So if the turnover or resignation starts, let's go check in. What's happening here? Or if numbers have drastically increased, or we've seen the needle move, that usually has to do with leadership and culture of the store too.
Insanely great point. If you look at the numbers and metrics that we all do anyways, and then turnover, that could tell you a lot. And being able to go and look further into it, question that. And even going back to how you talked about being in the business and walking through, we hear about management by walking around. I think being able to go just walk the facility on a consistent basis, you can really get a sense. And sometimes it might take a different set of eyes too. I think everybody's human, and you can become numb to a situation, or maybe just take it for granted as to what a culture is. But maybe getting a fresh set of eyes to come through and look at things through a different lens is another maybe effective way.
Our senior VP always measures how clean things are too. It tells you something. It's like, are things put away? Does it look like a place where people want to work or customers want to be? And when things have maybe shifted one way or the other, it tells you something too, that maybe it's not a focus point, and that fresh set of eyes.
Well, our hour is up, Lindsey. I cannot thank you enough. I learned so much over the course of this hour, and you may not be on Broadway, but you are an absolute rock star in our business and in our industry. So thank you for everything that you're doing for Walser, for the industry. I can't tell you how much of a pleasure all of our conversations have been, but today was an absolutely great podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's just the beginning, and I hope that our conversations can trigger others in our industry to think a little differently and do a little better. It only helps us all. So it's been a wonderful honor to be asked to be a part of WrenchWay, and excited to see where everything goes for the platform for WrenchWay. I'm a huge believer, and
thank you.
Thank you for all your kind words.
That wraps up this week's episode of Beyond the Wrench. Be sure to tune in next week for another brand new episode. As a reminder, don't forget to rate and follow Beyond the Wrench on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps us get Beyond the Wrench in front of other fantastic shop owners, managers, technicians, and dealers just like you, so we can continue to help improve, promote, and grow this amazing industry. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week.